Hey YouTube, it's Dave from Dave vs. Axie. Welcome to another video on our channel. Today we're going to start a three-part series covering breeding within the Axie Infinity game. This part may seem pretty basic or common knowledge to a lot of people, but if you're new to the game or relatively new to the game, I think this video is going to be very helpful. And even if you've been playing Axie Infinity for a while, if you did not know about some of the tricks and tips in this video, I hope you find some value out of it as well. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So to start, there are two key extensions that I want everyone to go download after this stream. I'm going to post all of the links that I talk about in the video today below. So the first thing is going to be Freak's Axie extension. So Freak's Axie extension allows you on any page, whether it be Marketplace or your own inventory, to scroll over and see their statistics. So as what we're looking at here, I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see a little bit easier. You're looking at its dominant, recessive 1, and recessive 2 genes. So if you weren't aware, Axies have different genes for each part of their body. So this includes their color, their shape, which also can include like their pattern on their back if you see over here. So every trait that they have on them has a dominant, recessive 1, and recessive 2 genes. When you're looking at these genes, the rough math is that R2 is a 1% chance. R1 is a 3% chance, and the dominant is a 13% chance or effect to its actual purity. So that would mean that this Axie right here is 19% impure if you're just going for a beast, which would make it 81% pure if you're calculating that out. So right now I'm just looking at mechs, but if I were to switch over to plants, you can see right here, this is a 95% plant that has a 1 R1 that is non-plant and has 2 R2s. So this is a very key metric when you're looking to evaluate how good or bad your Axie is and what the breeding outcome is going to be. So this is called Freak's extension. You'll add it up in the Google. I'm not going to teach you how to put on the extension, but I will give you the link so you can do so. It's very, very easy. And this will load up for all of your Axies. For me, I'm looking for, if you're going to try to breed a pure Axie, you always want to be looking for 95% plus. I actually strive for 97% plus if you're trying to keep your Axie pure, that being 6 out of 6 in the dominant genes. However, you can start risking with some lower gene quality. Also, we're going to teach you today a little bit about what actually is going to affect your Axie's final outcome. The second one we're going to talk about is Flowbot's extension. This is a little bit more of an advanced extension, and I say that meaning when we're evaluating an Axie, you really want to evaluate how much damage can that Axie do. So as we look at this Axie, you can drag cards over, and you'll see down bottom it will allow you to see what the damage output would be against any given Axie. Now, for some cards, there's actually bonus damage. That would be like a Nutcracker. If you play 2 of them, or a Nut Throw, you would get bonus damage because you use 2 Nut cards. So you can attach that bonus damage, and you'll see it recalc there. Or you put in Risky Beast before 2, which would be the bonus damage if you were in Last Stand. So it's kind of a nice trick to see how much damage your Axie can do. This will also help you in Arena. But it's really great, especially when you're looking at breeding, because it can help you decide what cards you want, or you hope, for your final Axie outcome to be, based on the goal of the Axie. Because you might be going for a defensive wall, you might be going for heals, but you might also be going for some base damage with a couple of high attack cards, or all high attack cards, depending on the Axie that you're trying to create. So that is Flowbot's extension, and again, I'll drop both of those below. So as we evaluate Axies, probably one of the most misunderstood part about Axies is their base statistics. So when we look at an Axie here, right, it tells you your health, your speed, your skill, and your morale. And it's also important to know exactly what each of those do. The best guide for this right now is the Axie Infinity Alpha Guide. It's a little bit older. There might be some new ones coming out. I know Putra, shout out to him. He's put out some new Axie Infinity guides. I haven't gone through this stats and skill-based guide, but that's something else to consider. So to review them really quickly, HP is going to affect how much health your Axie actually has. Your morale will do 2 things. It will increase your critical strike chance, and it will also affect how many last stand tickers you have, and if you are able to enter into last stand. So that means like for a beast, they're going to not only have a better chance to last stand, but if they do last stand, they will have 3 ticks, as opposed to someone like an Aqua, who has very low morale, will be less likely to enter last stand, and if it does, it will only have 1 tick on it. Then there comes skill. Skill is probably one of the most complex factors. I'm not going to go into it too much. It really does not factor into the Axie's damage calculation that much right now. However, skill adds damage when an Axie plays multiple cards at once in a combo. The extra damage is calculated as stated before. Card attack times skill divided by 500. Again, it does not affect very much into what the Axie's final damage is, and we'll talk about why in a second and how there isn't a whole lot we can do to affect skill. Finally, you have speed. So speed is obviously a very important part of the game and which Axie is going to go first. And you might even see at the top when you're playing an arena that your Axies move the order sometimes as to who is actually going first on a given round. So there are moves that will slow or speed up an Axie that can affect it, but one of the more common things is actually just having lower HP or a lower ID number if you have the same speed as the other competing Axies. So it goes base statistic. It goes by your highest speed goes first. Then if you have a tie there, it goes to the lowest HP Axie. If there's a tie there, it goes to the highest skill Axie. If there's a tie there, it goes high morale, and then a tie there, it goes low fighter ID. So if you have a pure aquas, two of them, or you have one and your opponent has another, your HP, skill, morale are all going to be identical. So then it will go to the low fighter ID before one has taken damage. Once one has taken damage, then it'll just be the lowest HP Axie in the arena. Now, as we look at each class, the important thing to look at here too, each class actually has a different base stat line. So that means how much HP, speed, skill, and morale they have. We just talked about what each of those does. However, the biggest factor in here that I want to discuss when you're looking at breeding is actually going to be the moves. Because each body part that you have on them, so there's the eye, ear, back, horn, mouth, and tail. So there are 6 body parts that you need to be considering, and each one, depending on the type that the move or body part actually is, will affect something on that Axie. So you can see here, like an aqua will add 3 points to the speed category and add 1 to HP. Whereas, a bird will also add 3 speed, but it will add 1 to morale. So depending on what your final statistics you want to have the outcome be, this can be very important. Now, what I'll call out here is that there is no way to increase the skill on any Axie. So as you look, the only Axies that seem to have higher skill right now it says Nut. That's actually the Mech class. And the Dawn class. The others are all basically right around 35. A couple that are lower are Plant, Beast, Reptile, and then Dusk actually is the lowest at 27. So there's no way to increase it. No body parts will affect or help your skill. So that's an important thing to note as you go through and try to build the right Axie for you. There are some other things that are unique here to discuss as well. So if you're looking at Beast and Reptile, the Beast cards and body parts are going to add 3 morale, which kind of is that luck chance to go to last stand, but also to have critical strikes, and it will also give 1 to speed. Whereas the Reptile adds 3 to HP, which will then boost your overall health, but also 1 to speed. So that means if you had a Beast or a Mech with a Reptile body part on it, which I'm going to show in a second, it would actually have more health, but the same base speed. So when you're building your Axie, you want to consider what is your ultimate goal. For plants, a lot of people want their plants to have high health, but their main thing is they want it to be slow, because one of the most popular cards for a plant is Sirius. So if you're going to go for a slow plant, you can actually live with some bug parts, because bug and plant cards do not increase your speed, whereas every other class body part will increase your speed. So these are little things to consider when you're going through to also either find deals or find just playable Axies that are not going to affect the overall quality when you enter into the arena, whether it be for yourself or for scholars. So it's a little bit in detail, but it's something to consider, especially as you are hunting the market or you're trying to work out what the best breed is going to be for you when you're playing in the game. And you notice this too, like plants, a popular build for plants is leaf bug antenna or leaf bug horn. And so because the plant does lose some health, but it does not gain any extra speed. So your Sirius will still be effective. Or an aqua class that has Cuckoo, because when you have Cuckoo on it, it has the same speed boost as an Aqua card. However, instead of having the extra HP, you have extra morale. So those are a couple things to factor and think about as you are trying to either class create or shop on the marketplace. So once you kind of understood that a little bit more, there are several of these, and I'm going to show just my favorite, which is AXIZone. But there's AXIZone. Freak has one built into his online platform. Chill Axie is a newer one. there's several others as well. But I would say that when you're looking at breeding, doing a breeding simulator is a great place to initially learn what the potential outcomes are going to be. So once you put two Axies in here, you can hit toggle odds, and it'll break down the percentages of what the chances of getting on that Axie are. And so as we talked about, the six obvious ones are the eyes, ears, mouth, horn, back, and tail. However, there is also the other two factors. There is pattern and color. So the pattern and color will be if you're also trying to kind of craft a cute or adorable Axie. They're nice to know those as well as to what chances you might get. So like for instance, neither of these are fuzzy, but I actually have a 9.3% fuzzy chance and a 15% spiky chance because of their old genes that are stuck there in R1 and R2. So that's kind of a unique thing to always focus and watch out for when you do go to breed two Axies together. And you can also see here, it's mostly pure on all around, but I do have Fryzar, which is that reptile part that is on this beast. And again, I'm okay with that because it actually is adding health and giving my beast more sustainability in arena without hurting its speed. And it's not affecting anything else that I personally care about in my breeds. But there's also some other things in here, like an aqua mouth card and a bird mouth card. The cool thing I like about Axie Zone is you can hit the breed button to breed simulation breeds some of them, and one factor in here that we do not talk about is mutations. It calls out here up top that this does not calculate mutations into the breeding calculation. And mutations happen at a 10% risk to any body part. So that means there is a 10% chance when you breed that a new body part not listed in here at all or in their genes at all will mutate into that Axie, but that will only hit into their R1 or their R2. So what you are kind of guaranteed is that the dominant genes are only going to come from the gene pools on either Axie. But the mutations can land in either R1 or R2 that will then affect the purity of your Axie going forward. So that is something to consider as you breed. There is some risk that, obviously if you buy 200% Axies, you're not guaranteed to have 100% Axies be bred off of those. So something else to talk about as well that isn't quite posted in a lot of different places if you haven't been an Axie for a little bit. So looking at our 6 breeds that were kind of test breeds that we did that would have come out of that, you can see we have 3 pures, we have 2 with the Fryzar, which was a part of the dominant genes, and we got 1 hungry bird in there. And so that just really means that, and I actually hit this button 29 times prior, didn't get either risky fish or hungry bird. And then now I did it 6 more times and I got 1 of them because I wanted to show that even though it's a small percentage, there still is that risk that I could get that into my dominant genes when going through and breeding your Axie. So it is something still to consider. You probably don't want to be just doing 1 breed at a time. If you do a few at a time, the odds are you're going to get a couple good ones, maybe a couple bad ones, a couple with mutations, hopefully some without mutations. So it's always kind of a risk, but something to consider as you go through and actually breed out your Axies. The last part I want to discuss, because it is a very popular tool and I think they have a lot of potential and something that's to help you understand when you're shopping for Axies, but also when you go to list an Axie so you don't undervalue within the potential that you could sell at. So I have 2 Axies here, right? One has the Fryzard, the other does not. I can say right now that the Fryzard probably isn't valued highly in the market. It's a very new thing that I've been starting to do, but I can tell you it's effective in my arena play. But the valuations you're going to see here is that even though they have different, one's pure, and the other is not with 6, and the dominant, the other one has obviously that Fryzard, they're still valued right now as rare. You can see that their health statistics change. This is 34 versus 31, and it gives you that breakdown. But when you scroll down, it's going to show you recent sales and current listings. Now the challenges that you have here is that they don't factor in the entire purity of the Axie. So obviously if you have 100% all the way through, we're seeing some Axies like that are selling for over 1 Ethereum, which is an incredibly expensive Axie and a huge win for whoever is able to breed them. And you can see some that are currently listed here, so what the market has and what recent sales were. Now, recent sales also do not factor in your breed count. So obviously a 0 breed is usually going to sell more than a 7 breed. And so that's something else to factor in as you go through and list out your axes as you compare them. And you can see here too, with one being not pure versus the other, we're seeing the same information. So definitely something to consider when you go through and list. I know some also focus on the unique, the one of ones. Sometimes they are very valuable and they can sell for a lot. Other times it's just because that those parts haven't meshed up together, because there is a lot of obviously combinations throughout the Axie universe. So something else to consider as you weigh what your Axie is truly worth. Um, so that's pretty much all I'm going to cover today on the breeding side. Coming forward, what I also want to be talking about is I'm going to be doing evaluations on some cards amongst the axes and how to pick good cards from the dominant R1 and R2 to go through and breed. I'm going to give you my personal favorite breeding trick. If you've been on my Twitch stream, you probably heard it, but I'm going to cover it in YouTube for you all as well. And then kind of after that, as a follow-up to the whole breeding tutorial, we'll talk about how to build a team, not just for yourself, but also for scholars, and kind of depending on what your goal is, how to get the best bang for your buck when you're going through and breeding out Axies. So that's kind of the first intro to breeding. I hope this was helpful for many of you. Hopefully you're going to find some new extensions or tools that will help you out. And again, we're excited for part 2. We'll cover cards class and kind of just breeding costs and what we're going to be doing going forward. Thank you very much, YouTube. Hopefully we'll catch you guys later. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.